B-roll, B-roll, B-roll. Obviously, on YouTube right now, B-roll is basically the king of videos. I mean, B-roll basically makes or breaks your video in a lot of situations. And so today, I wanted to make a video talking about that. So, yeah. Let's do it. What's good, creative fam? Brandon Washington here. And first of all, if you're brand new to the channel and you haven't already, definitely consider hitting that subscribe button, because this channel is all about filmmaking gear, tips, and tutorials. And as I mentioned already, in this video, we're going to be talking about B-roll, and not only how to capture it, but also what's the importance of it and really how should it be used. All right, now first of all, let's break down what is B-roll. Now, B-roll is something that typically goes over top of your existing footage, normally over some type of dialogue, and it's used to enhance whatever the person is talking about. So these could be shots, showing what someone is telling. And honestly, in my opinion, that is the best way that B-roll is used. However, there are a couple ways that you can ensure that you have solid and really good B-roll, and we're gonna jump into those tips right now. Alright, now the first tip, and this is something that we see all over the internet, and that is shoot your B-roll in slow motion. Now, just because you're shooting in slow motion doesn't necessarily mean that you want to always play it back in slow motion, but the benefit of shooting your B-roll in slow motion is, one, it breaks up the video a little bit, so it gives you that little bit of a cinematic feel, but also allows you to kind of play around with those additional frames. On top of that, not only do you have to play it back in slow motion, but you can also do things like speed ramps or just creative effects by having those additional frames in play. Now, I normally recommend shooting all B-roll at 60 frames per second, or even shooting at something as slow as 120 frames per second. Or if your camera can go slower than that, then by all means go for it. But personally, I really love shooting all my B-roll in slow motion just because it gives me more options in post. Alright, now tip number 2, and this is one that I find that a lot of people struggle with when it comes to B-roll, and that is make sure your B-roll tells a story. Having just random clips thrown throughout your video as B-roll doesn't always necessarily make sense. I mean, yes, it is a deviation from the original A-roll of footage, but having B-roll that tells a story typically engages your viewer more, and it keeps them kind of going along with the video. So for example, if someone is talking about, constantly being on the phone or walking from one place to the next, showing B-roll that kind of goes in line with what they're saying and putting multiple clips together to really showcase what they're talking about really helps to tell that story through B-roll, and not just having one random clip thrown throughout the video where it really doesn't make sense. Now, tip number 3 that really kind of helps with telling that story, and that is shoot your B-roll last. Now, this is something that I've actually started doing not too long ago, but it really helps me to kind of make a bigger difference in my B-roll. And so what I mean by that is, if you're doing like an interview type setup or something like YouTube, like this here, where someone's talking to the camera or even talking just right off camera, the benefit of shooting your B-roll last is by knowing exactly what your subject is going to be talking about, you can ensure that you capture the right B-roll to help go along with what they're saying. So for example, in the past where I've done videos where I'm talking about gear or whatever, by me actually showing B-roll that goes hand in hand with what I'm talking about makes a massive difference. And especially in situations where you don't have a script or the person is just kind of talking off the cuff, you want to shoot your B-roll at the end so that way you know exactly what you need to cover what they're saying. Now, tip number 4 is something that's going to really help with just the overall dynamic of your B-roll, and that is choose different focal lengths. I personally love shooting a lot of my B-roll at 35mm. I actually have this brand new Sigma 35mm 1.4, which is a beautiful lens, and I love shooting B-roll with it. However, being able to change up my focal lengths, like for example, shooting on my 70-200, or even shooting on something as wide as my 16-35. This really helps me to get a very dynamic and different looking B-roll throughout my video. By changing up the focal length, it really will allow you to just kind of more so show off whatever it is that you're talking about, so that way your audience never gets bored or feels stale looking at the same type of shots over and over again, but just from different angles. And the fifth and final tip is shoot a lot of B-roll. I can't tell you enough, especially when I was first starting out, how often I did not shoot enough B-roll. I would be sitting down to edit, I would have laid out all my B-roll, I'd be out of shots, and I would still need to hide certain edits. And that's another really good point for B-roll, is it's great for hiding cuts. Well, if you don't have enough B-roll, you could be in a lot of trouble, especially if you're trying to tell a great story. And so this is where I say make sure you overshoot when it comes to B-roll. Now I'm pretty much at a 1-to-10 ratio, and so what I mean by that is for about every minute of B-roll that actually makes it in my video, I probably have about another 10 minutes of footage that doesn't make it. And this is massive, especially when choosing the right B-roll for your edit. If you overshoot, it gives you more than enough information, it gives you more than enough footage to make sure that exactly what you need makes it into your edit. And so I always recommend overshoot your B-roll. So there you have it. Those are some quick and easy B-roll tips for you guys. Start implementing those in your videos today, and I can guarantee that your B-roll will take it up to the next level. Now, if you guys have additional questions for me, definitely leave those down in the comments below. Also, check out some of these other videos that I put out, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. And don't forget to subscribe. Yeah, go ahead and do that. All right, guys. Peace.